Hey everyone, this is Samantha, and I normally grace this page to give you like something amazing that's going on with Trans Youth Channel, but this week I wanted to actually take part in our topic that's going on. This topic is a very big one, it's a very important one, and I wanted to make sure that it was covered and that I was speaking to you because chances are you're going to identify pretty heavily with this subject. We're talking about trans suicide, and this topic is very difficult for me to speak about because it really hits me very deep down. Being a trans advocate who's talked to many youth who are threatening their lives, and also being in that position before myself. I felt this over a period of 2 years while I was trying and struggling with my own identity. 42% of our trans community will make an attempt on their life. 10% will succeed. In the homeless communities, this number jumps from almost half at 41% to 2/3 of our community. 61% of homeless youth will make an attempt on their life. These are things that are 10 times the national averages. These are problems in our community that have to be taken care of on every level of communication, from interpersonal to small group, familial, all the way to mass media, and how our government and policies, how healthcare systems handle this. It's a very complicated one, and it's going to be a problem that needs to be solved quickly. So how do we do this? Before we continue, however, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. When I was 6 or 7 years old, I lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We were about 45 minutes away from Laramie, Wyoming, where there was a man who managed to put this town on the national map in media. His name was Matthew Shepard. He was put onto the news because of a brutal beating that left him tied to a post about 10 miles out of Laramie, Wyoming, and he was left for dead. This impacted me harshly, and it's not because of Matthew. It's more so because of the way that my father responded to the case. He said, "Good. Just good." I don't know what possessed my father to qualify someone's homicide, someone's death off of sexuality, off of gender identity, but what I do know is that whatever went through his head was based on unfounded and ignorant actions and thoughts on what it meant to be gay. It really hit me hard knowing that I would not be accepted by my father, who said good riddance to someone's death who was like me in some way, shape, or form. But I also had LGBT friends who were along any form of the gender binary, and I managed to find support, I managed to find community, and get rid of all of the hurdles that I needed for my personal transition. I was very lucky to be included in that 41% and not the 10. The reason why we're doing these videos is because of a young woman who took her life over the holidays named Leelah Alcorn. She took her life because she did not have what I had. She was cut off from her community as soon as she came out to her parents. She was forced through correctional therapy, and her parents didn't know how to handle this change that their daughter was going through. This led her emotionally and physically into a spiral that brought her to that 10%. How do we fix that? I would like to posit as a solution for this, without getting too far into the details of what Leelah's parents did wrong, because it's been pretty well covered by the media, I'd like to posit something very, very important, in that it is not based upon these macro cultures, such as religion, such as political views, such as the way that we take in our media and the sensationalism or the extremism, but more so because of their communities and lack of LGBT understanding in those communities. Many people might rush to say it's because they were conservative or they were religious and that led them to be anti-gay or anti-LGBT, when in fact, by a survey of a Catholic church, of a Catholic community, many Catholics in the community thought that 75% of their community was against gay rights, whereas that number, upon actually being surveyed, was 50%. We are not seeing enough LGBT activism going on in these churches that seem to agree with LGBT activism. Even further, when we look at a lot of politics and a lot of political systems, most millennials, 97% of millennials, agree that gay and LGBT rights need to happen. We need to make sure that these people are coming to the forefront and are talking about it and are bringing up those resources that allow us to learn more about how to handle LGBT youth, how to handle friends and family coming out, and even further, how to handle it if you are not being accepted as an LGBT person yourself. The statistics about the trans community are far too overwhelming for our community not to do anything about it. When it comes to understanding what we need to do, we understand that there are far more allies who are not speaking up than we really thought there were, especially in religious and conservative sects that LGBT individuals seem to be biased toward thinking they automatically won't accept us. Further, we're not managing to impact familial units, small group, interpersonal units, and allowing those family members to understand what it really means to be LGBT or an ally of the LGBT community. But I am fully confident that if Leelah's parents had understood what it meant for Leelah to be going through such a transition, they would have sought to save her life in proper ways. We would still have Leelah. And now it's just a matter of going through, as Leelah said, and figuring out how to fix society. If you are at risk of suicide, I highly recommend that you look at these resources that we've provided here. We have partnerships going with Trans Lifeline, a very valuable resource, especially if you're a trans individual. And if you're just an LGBT individual not necessarily identifying with the trans area, view the Trevor Project. An absolutely wonderful amount of resources can be offered here. And if you feel like you might be suicidal, make sure that in addition to calling these, you look at what you can do to change or get out of your environment. There's nothing wrong with you personally. So please reach out to this community. Do what you can. Make sure that you're safe. And we are more than happy to speak with you.
And if you don't know what conversion therapy is, it's basically therapy to try to convert someone back into the gender they were born as, or straight. In Leelah's suicide note on her Tumblr,